evening or good morning. I'm really excited to introduce Jeannde Ford. Jeannde is in Kentucky and I'm in Melbourne, Australia. So it's worlds apart and it's in the morning at your end, isn't it, Jeannde?
It is, and it's also a different season we were talking about.
Yes, you're in summer and we're in winter and it's late in the evening.
Yes.
So it's really exciting that we can connect this way. And to say a little bit about you, you are a dancer, a ballet dancer, and you've been trained in the classical way and also in the modern way, which is, I find, quite exciting because they're very different genres. And you're also a story coach. And I've experienced that with you twice now. And it is fascinating to create and to come with stories that come from nowhere, really. And what I learned as well from you is you grew up in a very creative world surrounded by dancing, storytelling, and arts as well. And you've developed that further in your adult life.
Yes, we were talking about it was sort of this beautiful creative bubble that has become such a huge part of my adult life.
Yes,
So yeah, really
yes.
grateful for having it.
Yeah, tell me about the hands behind you
Oh, the
because
hands.
they look very creative.
They are. I think so too. It's not anything I did, but I found this. It's a backdrop. And I thought, speaking to my wonderful friend in Melbourne, that it would be a lovely way to embrace us with our hands. But I was just telling her that over here is the United States. And then way down over on this side, you can't see it, is beautiful Australia.
Down
And I
under.
and I down, oh, good. And I love that it's our hands coming together. So, yeah,
Yes, that
yes.
no, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
So you are doing storytelling, and at the moment it's happening on Zoom a lot, and you've got people who share their stories based on how you inspire them to create those stories.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a bit more about where that passion has come from and what you are planning on doing with it, or
Okay.
what you're doing with it?
Yeah. I everything has is in this framework of story. As a dancer, seeing the arts and the creativity around me as a child, it was all about these beautiful stories that were being created, whether it was through movement, through painting,
Mm.
through theater, whatever it was. And then it was starting to see how it's how we connected, and it's certainly how I bring the legacy of my parents forward. It's all with this lovely, gooey, wonderful story. And in my work today, I don't like calling it work because it's just so lovely and wonderful. Um, it's I really am passionate about supporting others in their stories in however that may look. It may be that you're working on writing. It could be that you're working through some part of a legacy that has been passed on to you. It could be, I'm just me and I want to just go into this creative space and figure it out. Or future. It could be about what is that future that you're trying to create with that imagination, which, as I was saying earlier, it is a superpower that we were all innately born with. So my role is to say, let's get that muscle going. And I do it through these free events, storytelling events on Zoom. And I had this lovely woman from Australia come one time, which was just so magical. But yeah, to be able to share with people, or share, because that's what story is about, but also to ignite in them a little glow of story and recognize that that is the thread that connects us, and to explore that and where it takes us is just magic, just magical.
It's like we're given permission to start a journey that normally we don't really think much about. Because I know that I've been asked to tell stories, and I said, I'm not a storyteller. And joining your group twice has been really an eye-opener that I've really enjoyed it, and I realized I can tell stories.
Yeah, and I think I love that. Thank you. And I believe the big piece to this, well, there's a couple of big pieces, but one is to recognize that we are all stories. We carry something around in us that nobody's going to know unless you put it out there, whether it's, again, through painting, through art, through speaking, through storytelling, through writing, through just sitting and having a conversation with somebody. That's the only way you're going to be able to share your story and have it connect with somebody else's story. And then the other piece to that, which is just, again, such another, I hate to use the word over and over again, it's a superpower, and that is listening. If we didn't listen, if we didn't have that ability or capability, there would be no stories. It's not possible. So to be able to, again, exercise that ability, that muscle, that listening muscle, it opens up a whole nother piece of story. It's just beautiful.
Yes. And what I hear you doing is to connect story to dance as well, to movement. How does that help or someone to become more creative in their storytelling or more creative in their dancing? How does that work?
That's a beautiful question. Story we equate typically, I'm generalizing here, with vocabulary.
Yeah.
And then the vocabulary hopefully will stir an emotion within you. For me, growing up, story began within, and it was our complete bodies. It was everything. It was how we interpreted an idea or a story, or, I mean, Nutcracker ballet is a story. So I learned from the time, my mother carried me when she was a classical dancer. So when she was carrying me in her tummy, I was doing dancing.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always, it's just, that's why I can't stop moving. It's about this, I don't know, it just stirs in me this completeness, this thoroughness of taking this beautiful thing that we have that we call the body, and to be able to move it in such a way that it speaks to somebody. And when I came to Louisville about 3 years ago, I came to work with the Louisville Ballet on a couple of projects. And most specifically, the one that I choreographed in partnership with the artistic director there, Robert Curran, was about age. They had invited me to come down before I knew Robert to actually do a performance. Now I am, no longer performing in the way that I used to, but I love the story of gesture. I love that it comes from the inside out. I love that I can say to you, hello, how are you today? Or I can say, how are you today? I mean, there's just so much expression. So I performed for them because I do something called gestural dance. And I could do it in a small space because I don't move a lot. And that's what they required. And I met the artistic director, and he, of course, is retired. Dancers experience ageism at a very, we grow up knowing about it. It's going to end. Yeah. There's an ending to this. But we connected and we worked on some things and choreographed a piece. And the piece in the end was about, it had myself in it, and I'm, in my mid 60s, 67. going to be 67. And then we had Robert, who was, you know, that midline, and he had come out of retirement in order to be able to do this, which was powerful.
Yeah.
That says it all, doesn't it?
Mm.
And then we had a young woman, a company member, who was just lovely, Lexa. She was just beautiful. And the three of us did this piece together. And what we were trying to achieve, which was so powerful, is each one of us, didn't matter what we could do, didn't matter our age, none of it. We came together to tell a story through movement that made us all as valuable as the next person. So it wasn't about me coming on as a character dancer, which is powerful. I'm not saying anything against that, but it was about we were equal. We were equal in our stories because it had nothing to do with age.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it was really, really an exciting time.
Yeah. And it's so good to hear for younger people that, because we talked about this before, connecting around dancing, that dancing, it's a physical movement, but it is also a mental and emotional, because there's joy in moving your body. And we can do this at any age, and it's keeping the blood flowing, and it keeps the joints lubricated and healthy.
And it's holding that spirit of self, and letting that spirit itself activate and go through you. I mean, it's literally coming from that heart space, and of course it has that emotional component, and then allowing your body to just take that on and let it continue. I work with some folks on some of my clients with regards to preparation for speaking. And I love the idea of seeing who they are and adapting what message it is they're trying to get across by using who they are. So I'm going to use a little example. I was working, or I crossed paths with a young man, and he was more from the kind of corporate sort of scene. And he stood up in one of these programs I was a part of, and he stood up and he was delivering a impromptu, which I love impromptu. It's one of my favorite things. An impromptu talk, a couple minutes. Well, he's kind of awkward, you know, good looking young man, thin, but have you ever seen somebody kind of just a little awkward, right? And so part of the role, the goal during these different programs, in some of them, is to be able to get feedback so we can really nurture each other and acknowledge who we are. This is the part I love about working. Well, there's lots I love about working with other people, but in his case, it was, you know, I love what you said, and I did. I thought it was great. And there's an awkward quality about you. Let's use that, because it's so endearing. It is so, I don't know, it came across as being authentic. Now, do we have to work on things? Like, yeah, we do. A lot of it is getting out of your head, oh my gosh, I'm awkward, and going, I'm going to embrace this, and I am going to see where it will take me.
I like that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to see that, like, I'll watch people giving a speech, they'll sometimes give it to me, and I'll watch them, and then, what did you just do there? What is that you just did? Did you reach for something? I did. Oh, that was brilliant. Let's use that. So it's that kind of support that's really enjoyable.
And I can see as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when someone is awkward, for example, instead of fighting it, embrace it, because if you fight it, it will become worse.
And people will see the fight.
Absolutely, and you freeze. And you won't be able to say what you want to say.
Yes. Yeah. I had a marvelous mentor years ago. I was in Toastmasters for a period of time, and I remember going to the meetings in the beginning, and you know, you can have a mentor and so on. And I saw this man, and he was leading it, and he's just this wonderful guy who's done a lot. He's out there doing wonderful things. And I remember watching him and I go, oh, I want him to be my mentor. Oh, yeah. What if he has time? Okay. So I go out to him and of course we befriended each other and so on and so forth. And he would say to me, with all these rules, with all these guidelines, with all these, especially in those sorts of environments like Toastmasters and so on, which has a place. I'm not, it's great. But there's always these certain ways, and it's to teach us certain things. But he would say to me, make a mistake. Make a mistake. Because when you make a mistake early on, which is really giving yourself permission to be you, right? I mean, what better way to make a mistake than to be you, right?
Yeah.
But he said, if you give yourself permission to do that, that audience will be in there. They will connect with you.
Yeah.
And then the other piece to that, which I resonate with, is that if you can share story, you are emotionally connecting with an audience. There's so much to that piece. So.
Yeah, exactly. And when you make a mistake, if they're not engaged with you making that mistake, well, they will suddenly say, oh, what's happening here?
Snap out of it.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's pretty good.
Yes. Something I saw on your website as well, and I love that, is believing dance. You believe dance can heal, teach, and transform.
Yes.
So how do you see dancing heal someone? Being in the healing field, I'm
Sure.
interested in
Yeah.
that.
Yes, of course. And I have, I do some of that work.
Yeah.
If we move, well, okay, let's look at the basics here. If we don't move, we know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean that just is obvious. So physically, we have to be moving in order to have circulation, in order to get our muscles and our joints and all these things. I will say, coming from a background of really, in dance, you're really pushing stuff to an extreme. I think a balance is for everyone, and I think you have to find your balance. But for me to have that heart thing in there come out, it has to go through my brain to get the chemicals going, right? The oxytocin, Then all of that goes into my circulatory system, right? Goes into my physicality. So I taking ideas and thoughts and emotions and imagination, I'm accessing it through that space, and then it's going to literally become a part of me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in my bloodstream. It's in everything. So to me, that is that piece of taking where we are in our head spaces and connecting that with our heart spaces, and then inviting the body to participate in that. And it doesn't matter if you're a dancer.
No.
Move.
Yeah. And I like when you start to say, it's good for your joints, your muscles, etc.
Yes.
But I like how you link it to the brain and the emotions and all the hormones flowing, because it's a complete picture. Dancing and because it's the joy that you can feel by moving to rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when those dancers are up there dancing, the ones that we know as dancers, the professionals that are up there, they are accessing, yes, do they have technique and all those things that are just, oh my goodness, such it's a hard toll on your body in the end.
Mm.
But they are tapping into an emotional piece that is what we see when we go to watch them. And there is this thing called mirror neurons. I love mirror neurons.
Yeah.
And that's that piece where when we are watching somebody doing something, storytelling, dancing, speaking, I don't know, juggling, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. When we relate to them through those mirror neurons, we're literally reflecting chemically within our bodies what that person is doing. and our body is chemically responding in the same way it is for them. It may be, I'm not in the act of doing it, so maybe mine's a little gentler or what have you, but that's fascinating to me. We are experiencing with another at the same time in the present. That's beautiful.
Yeah. No,
I love that.
that's great.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you are planning in the coming weeks or months?
Oh, thank you for asking. I have, of course, I have those free events up online, and I have a Facebook page. I know you're going to put all of that up when you put up my information.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I invite people to come into Purple in Your Story, which is the Facebook page. But I also have a program that I'm working on that I will be initiating in the fall, which is what? In a few days. So it'll be within the fall, okay? And
it will be our spring.
That's true. Good point. That's a good point. You know how they have times of Eastern time, and we're going to have to start putting seasons. This the seasons. Never thought of that. Okay. But it's called Story Talk for Women Entrepreneurs. And this is about really diving into the art of cultivating and creating that piece that you may need when you are reaching out to your clients. Okay.
Right.
When you are trying to find that client base in some way, when you are thinking, I got to do some talking, or I want to do some speaking. How do I take these pieces of really storytelling and put it into a space where I can access it to use it when I need it? And it's going to be a 6-week program. And of course, it will have those components that we've talked about on here, which is about that connection and so on. And, you know, like that young man who was so awkward.
Yeah.
If we can learn to embrace who we are, what we want to achieve, and where and how we are going to achieve those things, that's the piece that this program is going to speak to. And I'm super excited about it.
Wonderful. Yeah. Sounds really lovely and beneficial for so many people.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
And I feel that we can really grow by telling our story in a way that is different to telling our story. And I've experienced that with the 2 sessions I did with you as well, that the first one, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to talk about? And we had 10 minutes to prepare, and I didn't come up with anything because I couldn't do it. And when it was my turn, something popped in my head and it came up. And I've learned a bit from that particular story to go forward with it and develop it further. So I'm really grateful for that experience.
I love that you were open to it. I remember you texted me that morning when you were going to come and say, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I just want to say a real quick thing about, and you did brilliant. We talked about your story sense, and I hope you develop it because it's just stunningly magical and such an important piece for others to hear. So I encourage you. But there is something called impromptu storytelling. And people can be terrified of impromptu because how am I going to do? I got to prepare. How am I going to do that? You're going to put me up in front of somebody. I got to do this. Oh my gosh, I'm terrified. It's a muscle. It's conversation. It's just being present and allowing yourself to just let it spill out. I provide spaces of safety, of imagination, and it's just in support of you and impromptu storytelling. Here's the thing. I'll say this and then I'll stop. I get so excited. When we prepare for things, that's great. I prepare for things. When I have to speak or something, I have to prepare. I write it out. 3 pages goes to 2. 2 pages goes to 1. Then slowly I knock it out to just a couple of words because my brain has gone. Then I throw it out the door.
Yeah.
Just throw it out the door. And that's the process of kind of whittling it down to just a couple of words that trigger you. because you just want to be authentic. You want to be present. And
Absolutely.
so the impromptu piece can be terrifying for people, honestly. Once you, I'd much rather be impromptu than practice. So
Yeah, because then it comes from yourself instead of having to think about it all the time. And it's not mathematical. It's
you,
yeah,
you.
exactly.
You know, I figured out when I got older. I figured out there's I'm trying to fix this and trying to fix that and say the right things and blah, 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 right? And I thought, wait a minute. I'm the only one that knows how to do Jeannde. No, nobody else knows how to do that. Now, I get support and advice and all that, but in the end, I got the playbook. Nobody else can do it better than Jeannde. And that's true for every single one of us. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned your name. What is the origin of your name?
Well, my parents were dancers, and my mother had a very, well, I guess, no, it started, it was in the opera ballet, and opera ballet many years ago, and her name was Jeannde. And I've never met her. Years later, I'd seen a publication, a book that had written speaking to that era of dance, and my parents were in there, and I was flipping through the picture, and it's wonderful things that were going on during that period in the Bay Area of San Francisco. But I remember flipping through, and all of a sudden, there's a photograph of this woman, and her name is Jeannde. First off, I've never seen my name at all, unless I put it right. And I was fascinated. I'd never seen her, nothing. But I saw this woman and connected with her. And I guess she was a big part at that time. It's been a few years ago in helping with that book in particular. I was told at one point that it's if you see Jeanne of Arc, it's JeanDeArc, and it's a little in there. So I've been told that it came from Jeannde d'Arc.
Yeah.
Because I love
in French, because I speak French, it's Jeanne, Geanne.
Okay.
So that's the D.
The D or the N.
Yeah. So Jeanne d'Arc. Jeanne. Yeah.
Yes. That's
and
beautiful.
I mispronounced your name to start off with because of my accent.
Well, but you said you explained it. It was Jeanne.
Jeanne.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Jeanne. Yes.
It's been lovely to have a chat, Jeannde. And how can people contact you? What is the easiest way?
Probably on Facebook, like everybody else. I have there's a page called Purpling Your Story, as in the color, and you'll also see a wonderful interview with one only on there, because I do love to interview people. I love gathering stories. So there's that. Also, and you can find me just Jeannde Ford in Facebook. And then also just Jeannde Ford at gmail.com. So, any of those ways, reach out to me. And I invite you, please come to the free, 3 free events every month. They are related to the story. And that's a great way. Those are all put on for your story face-to-face.
Right. And I would say it is really a great experience to be part of the group and tell a story, your story, as it happens at that moment.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for sharing your story. It's really inspiring how you have created this from your life experience and all the things you've done and learned and experienced throughout your life, and bring it to us now in the form you're going to launch soon.
our story.
We are our story, definitely. Thank you so much, Jeannde. And I'll join you soon again.
That's how we do it.
On Facebook on Fulfilling the Story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.